All right, welcome in. It is time for full court press. It is Thursday. That means the mid-majors are out in full force. We're a couple minutes late this morning, so very quick recap. 2-2 for me yesterday. Was sitting 2-1 after the early games. Had New Mexico last night, and they did not show up in the second half. But Arkansas Pine Bluff got it done for me with an outright win, so I'm dressed accordingly today. This was a gift from the athletic department. They were awesome to me down there, Rob. I felt like I had to bust out the Golden Lions zip up today. So 2-2 for me yesterday. Rob, how'd you do?
Yeah, it wasn't brilliant yesterday, Adam. It started out with a really tough loss with Detroit. Team total over 74.5. And I feel like I'm repeating some of the stuff that you went through in November and December, where you have Troy, 74 points, 30 seconds left. The other side fouls. You're going to the free throw line. 2 shots with your point guard, and he front rims both of them. And you're like, what are we doing here? You lose by half a point. Was not great. And then, of course, Washington State, which we left here as a play, the team total over, was my featured play of the day. And Oregon State comes up with 51 second half. I would have thought it'd be the other way around, but it wasn't. So it was a poor 1-3 college basketball day. NBA bailed me out with the Denver Nuggets, so we didn't lose quite that much. But college hoop was a tough day, one of the few tough days we've had all season.
Well, listen, it's a long season. Our goal is to just try to get as much good info out on a daily basis. So let's bounce back today, Rob. I was, kicking around feature games with you, and I said, I know there's a power conference game tonight, but it's a 25-point spread. There's only so much we can talk about in that one. So I want to head to the American Athletic Conference because this conference is, if you haven't been following American Athletic Conference basketball, this is as intriguing of a league as there is in the country in terms of like how close these teams are, how close every single game is. Tulsa and FAU was scenes at the end of that game, Rob. I don't know if you saw the end or if you had FAU plus 2.5, you might want to play the lottery this morning. Crazy end to that game, and for that one to stay within 2.5. But they're all great games. They're all like there's so many of these teams are so close. The reason I bring that up to lead into our feature game here, Rob, is the team that everyone thought was going to run away with this league, the Memphis Tigers, are not really even in that top group right now. They're sitting down there at 5-4, and they're playing a team that I think a lot of others may have thought was another team that would be in the mix at the top. I know if you go back to the beginning of the season, I personally like South Florida. They're in second place right now. But like the two teams that I think were on most people's, radar as the best teams in this league, UAB and Memphis, I would go as far as to say both have kind of struggled this season. And now they're sitting there 5-4, national TV, ESPN2 tonight. Really big game for the loser of this game is in trouble in this league, in my opinion. I think the winner gets themselves back into the mix. So, Rob Bino, UAB, Memphis tonight. This one is down in Birmingham, Alabama, which means UAB hits the road, but it also means pennies on the road as a slight dog. So how are you seeing this one, UAB, Memphis?
Yeah, that's the first thing that hits you when you're handicapping Memphis is their more comfortable position is as a dog. You add to that and the fact that they're the best defense in the AAC defensive efficiency wise. So that's helpful. UAB has just been a complete bust so far this season, but you look at the last 2 games they played and think, well, they beat North Texas, which is a really good defense, slow down type team. Maybe there's something going on with the Indy Kennedy squad. I'm not so sure. I have a lot more faith in the ceiling of Memphis at this point in time of the season than I do in that of UAB. And that comes off the heels of a loss to Ron Hunter's Tulane team, which isn't really that good. But I think that helps here. Again, we're playing situations and spots a lot of times at this time of year. And I think Memphis off of a loss probably brings a little bit more energy here tonight. Memphis as a road dog probably brings a little more energy tonight. And then personnel-wise, I just think they're better than what UAB is. UAB, generally speaking, under Andy Kennedy, fast-paced, high-scoring. it's not vintage UAB in either of those categories so far this season. So to me, I think the total, and again, I've said this before about Memphis games, so hard for me to figure totals with this team. They've been a little bit higher lately as far as final score results go. And maybe that's a sign of something, but I think they clamped down here defensively. So for me, not a game I played. I do like the Memphis side. I could get there still, Adam, +2, because I just because I think they're the better team in this instance, and there is a lot to play for at this time in February. Not that UAB doesn't have a lot to play for themselves, but I just don't know that they'll be able to, dent the Memphis defense. Past editions of UAB, I wouldn't worry about it. I'd probably be on over in this game. Don't know that I can get myself to believe that there's definitely going to be 154 points in this one. So for me, probably Memphis plus the points. Very, very slight lean.
Yeah, Rob, we always talk about on this show how we do this show in a time slot where a lot of these numbers are moving like in real time. And I would say what this one just moved to, so this particular game has had some market activity here over the last, I would say 10 minutes or so, pretty much right since we logged on the show. Like as it stands in real time right now, with that hitting 2.5, I think you can bet Memphis. I think it's going to get bet back. So it looks like UAB was a point and a half favorite here. It had got up to, it was 1.5. It had got up to 2. Now the 2.5s are coming. And I'm as I watch our Odds Logic screen, which again, I guess good time to promo Odds Logic. I really think it's the best. I've gotten so used to it at this point. It's just so easy to use, to organize, and it's cheaper than a lot of the other kind of comparable things out there. I think the best bang for your buck is Odd Logic. I get $0 to say that, by the way. I might have to strike up a deal there, Rob, because I'm over here promoting it. But I know a lot of the WagerTalk folks use it and sort of swear by it. It really is really good. Point is, I'm watching the screen right now. I'm watching every sharp book get hit at 2.5. The second it gets to 2.5. That to me in my head was like, all right, that's my sort of buy sort of price with Memphis. Now, I haven't done it yet, but I totally understand like wanting to take that key number in a game that really is, I would say it's a pretty even matchup, all things considered. I personally like the spot for Memphis. We talked about these teams getting into February and having almost like the come to Jesus moment, right? Where it's like, hey, your season isn't going the way you thought. It's, you've had some bad results. For Memphis, it's losing 3 of the last 4. You're not going to be the team that runs away with this league now, but there's still a lot of season to play, right? You're still very much in the mix at 5-4, just 2 games off of the lead in this league. And Memphis is going to have to start being realistic about things. They're probably not they're not an at-large team. I know they wanted to set their season up to be an at-large team, but they're just not that. So there's still a lot of season left. They'll obviously have their shot in the American tournament, but I think this is a good sort of rallying point for Penny, who tends to do well in in this spot as an underdog, which he's now an underdog. And when you look at these two teams, I don't see like so many redeeming qualities here from UAB to say, oh, well, UAB is like a better team and they'd be going in I look and say, okay, well, I still think Memphis might be the better of these two particular teams. And now you're going to give them to me in a spot where I think maybe favors Memphis off of a bad loss and plus 2.5. That's pretty good. That's good enough, Rob. I think I have to take Memphis there in that scenario.
Yeah, I think when you look at the game, none of those, none of the units that are going to be on the floor, Memphis offense, Memphis defense, UAB offense, UAB defense, 3 of the 4 are mediocre at best. The one that stands out is the Memphis defensive end, which has still been really, really good in this league, good enough to be the best defensive efficiency team in the league. So I would bank on the road defense and Penny motivationally to get this team. Like I say, Andy Kennedy's team in recent years, I probably would have been all over. And the money is all on over in this game. Generally speaking, I would be there too, but I'm just not sure.
Jacob, I'll go to Jacob's question or kind of comment because he makes a good point. He says Memphis is 1-6 on the road this season. Yeah, that people are going to see that. That's certainly a concern. I think when you talk about Memphis, I guess my sort of counter there is, I've been to a lot of these venues in the American at this point, and none of them have had just like what I consider to be like an insane home atmosphere where I would like bump considerably for home court. I think the one that I haven't been to yet that is probably the one that everyone thinks is like the more hype sort of home spots would be Wichita and South Florida. And of course, one of those away losses for Memphis was Wichita. Tulsa was a good atmosphere over the weekend, but again, I've been to Tulsa, I've been to Temple, I've been to FAU, I've been to North Texas. I think there's another one on this list. I didn't go into any of those buildings. Florida Atlantic, even Florida Atlantic, like, they struggled to get 2,800 at the Ellie, and it's not like I don't think the students are as invested as they were maybe after they had went to the Final Four. So I'm not giving like the huge bump for home court here. And I've heard from people that UAB doesn't have this great home court either. So I think I gravitate more toward Penny as a dog than Memphis being 1-6 on the road. If you're truly looking for like a trend, I prefer the Penny's really good as an underdog trend over the Memphis is 1-6 on the road, because I think some of that's small sample size.
Yeah, and you could counter that really easy, Adam, by saying UAB's 0-4 at home, last 4 games in the American East. They lost at home by 13 to USF, by 22 to Tulsa, by 5 to Florida Atlantic, and by 5 to Wichita. They haven't beaten anybody their last 4 home games. Those are all outright losses. So what's an 0-4 team doing being favored against a team of, I guess in my mind, I think that Memphis is slightly stronger, but bookmaker power rating numbers, probably relative strength here. They're getting that bump for home court. I don't know. 1-6 one way, 0-4 the other way. Pick whichever hand grenade you want to stand in front of. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, and with how good the every game in this conference seems to be, you might be good with getting 2.5 points, right? You might end up in the one possession, the game that comes down to the final possession that neither team can close out, and maybe you get it either way. It'll be a good one. That's at 9 p.m. tonight, ESPN2. Certainly one that a lot of people will have on their TVs, and good luck if you did get involved with that one. I have not done so yet. All right, Rob, we're going to go to Garth. Garth has donated. We appreciate you. We appreciate all of you in the chat. Even if, the donations, the likes, the subscribes, the retweets, just simply showing up and watching the show every day is greatly appreciated. But we will do Garth's game. This is another power conference game. This is a power conference game. I don't know that we've had the argument of like, is the American a mid-major league at this point? I lean toward it sort of being that. But we know the Big 12 is not. And we do have some Big 12 action. So Garth says, and I'll let you kick this one off, Rob, because I'm going to try to pull off the incredible feat of betting while we're on the show. Very, very difficult to do all of a sudden. But I'm going to let you kick this one off. It's Cincinnati, West Virginia. What Garth says is revenge spot for Cincy at home. He knows both teams typically play to the under. He thinks that total is too low. So you're our totals guy anyway. Talk to me about West Virginia, Cincinnati for Garth.
First point he makes, I just want to go off topic a hair bit and say to everybody that revenge games, this is the time of year where we see second time around. I went through, Adam, this morning and counted. There are 8 legitimate revenge games today inside of conference. A lot of it mid-major because their tournaments come earlier. They're into the second time around quicker. But like Garth says, this is one. It was a 62-60 West Virginia win the first time around against Cincinnati. West Virginia at home. Now Cincy gets a chance to get their revenge. I would be in agreement that the total here is really low. I mean, we started the year by talking about Ross Hodge and coming from North Texas, and that's the way West Virginia was going to, the style West Virginia was going to adapt here under his leadership, and it's pretty much come true. They are a good defensive team. Of course, you're in the Big 12, where being good only puts you middle of the pack. Cincinnati's rated even a little higher under Wes Miller defensively. But I do think there's some redeeming offensive qualities for both, although if you just go through the analytics, they're 2 of the 3 worst efficient offensive teams inside this league. West Virginia, we've spent a lot of time this year talking about really good freshmen. West Virginia, obviously one of those teams with one. For me, just on sheer numbers, Garth, I would probably lean toward over. This thing's come way down at this point, 32 down to 28 and a half. You're looking for 65, 64. You got 62 to 60 the first time, and there's some game film. And let me just say real quick that in that game, Adam, the shooting was horrendous on the Cincinnati side. They were the road team, only scored 9 points in the first 10 minutes, but went 37% from the floor, 34% from three. Not a lot of free. Surprisingly, in this game, not a lot of free throws. You would think a Cincinnati West Virginia game would have a lot of trips to the free throw line. Cincinnati only got there 9 times, made 4. The other side, West Virginia, got there 13 times, only made 7. Barely 50% on one side, less than 50% on the other side. You make a couple of those free throws in that first meeting, and you are over this particular total. So I could see some things changing here. They don't have to change in a huge manner in order to get to 129 in this case. So I'd be with Garth. It's not something where I'd say we've got a ton of wiggle room just because of styles of teams, but Wes Miller's team has shown the ability to score at times. West Virginia has shown the ability to score at times. And like I say, when you have second time around game film, coaches always like to try and fix what went wrong the first time. On the Cincinnati end, it was the offense, and Cincinnati gets the home floor this time. So for me, I'd probably think their offensive output increases, and therefore it gets up and over.
This is one where my initial reaction is where the market is sort of leaning to here. It was like, why is Cincinnati favored by 6? What is, I know they've had a big win over Iowa State, which to me was such that was a bad spot for Iowa State. If you go back to the Iowa State game, I believe they had just lost their first game, which was a trip to Kansas. So they went to Kansas, they got blown out, and then they had to follow it up and play another road game a couple days later at Cincinnati. So as Kelly Stewart loves to say, I think Iowa State lost that Kansas game twice, right? And it was to Cincinnati's benefit getting that win in that spot, because if I remember correctly, and that was on a Saturday when I was trying to watch 7 other games, that was a very lethargic effort from Iowa State. So I guess credit to Cincinnati for getting the big home win, but I think that had more to do with Iowa State just being in a really tough spot, huge winning streak. Then they lose to Kansas. Then they have to turn around and play another road game. Since that win, Cincinnati's lost 3 of 4, not competitive with Arizona whatsoever. Lose to Arizona State, which is not a good team. No one's faulting you for losing to Houston, but still not competitive in that game either. So now all of a sudden, Cincinnati is laying 6 points, laying 3 possessions against a West Virginia team that beat them the first time, right? 62-60 final in Morgantown back on January 6th. I mean, I didn't have a tremendous opinion on this game from a handicapping standpoint, but Garth, if you like the under, and the under is that number 127.5, you almost kind of have to like the +6, or at least think that there's the per point value, Rob Vino, on +6 is definitely there. So I lean the dog. Again, I haven't had a great beat on either of these two teams this year, so I don't know if this will make my card today, but that number seemed awfully high at -6.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, granted, it's revenge, but it was a 2-point game the first time around. These two teams are basically equal. After, the eye test will tell you that they're about equal in what they do well, what they don't do well. And it could be another 2-point game the other way. Back to his point, Garth's point about total, I do think probably it's a shade too low. They ought to rename that game the Bob Huggins Bowl, shouldn't they? I mean, seriously, whenever I think of Cincinnati and West Virginia, that's the first person that comes to mind for me.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Bob Huggins, great coach. Yeah, it was really, you have to I guess for me, I was old enough to, I was old enough to remember those good Cincy Bob Huggins teams. Those were some good teams. I want to say, did they not get to number one? They were number one with Kenyon Martin at one point. Were they not?
Yes,
they were up there.
They were.
Yeah, that was a great run. Those Cincy teams, late 90s, right? That was probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Because Kenyon Martin winds up in the NBA championship with the Nets in like 01.
Yeah, that was and I remember as a kid, right around a kid at that time, I wanted, it was like obviously hard to get, but I always wanted Cincinnati gear. That logo for a probably like 12, 13-year-old Adam Trigger thought that those Cincy jerseys and that logo was as good as it gets. All right, let's continue on. Let's go to Paul. Paul says, first thing I want to say is thank you for the Missouri-Alabama game breakdown. Huge help. That was, I think we're a week ago or two at this point. I remember commenting because I think when you donate in the $10 range, Rob Vino, which is extremely generous and we very, very much appreciate, it's a different color. So I remember commenting on the Missouri colors on the text, and we've got them again here. You could say they're also Arkansas Pine Bluff colors. Who knows? Had one with them last night as well. And he says he likes the over in Jacksonville, Queens. So it looks like we're going to the Atlantic Sun here, Rob Vino. Jacksonville, Queens. This is about as off the reservation as you can get, even on mid-major Thursday right here, because this isn't even the biggest game in the A-Sun. But that's what we're here to do: talk about the games that you guys want to talk about, and of course, if someone donates to the show, we're going to get the game. So Queens University, though, Rob, has been awesome. They've been the best team in this league this year. And I'll actually comment on that in a different game in a little bit. But Queens University has been awesome. They play Jacksonville. Paul wants to know about the total. So what do you got for me on the total in Jacksonville, Queens?
Well, I'd say real quick, anytime Queens appears on the board, the over is the first place that I look. In this instance, when I went back and looked at the original meeting or the first meeting against Jacksonville, it only hit 128 simply because Jacksonville can't score. It's the worst offensive team in the conference. Queens did their part, scored. So actually for Queens, that's not doing their part, scoring 77. Against Jacksonville, you want them to be somewhere in the 80s to get it over. But Jacksonville, listen, for what it's worth, they stink on offense. They're really good inside league on defense. So it's a team that wants to go slow, wants to try and half court you to death. When you're just a simple fundamental thing, when you're not as good athletically each and every year, sometimes what coaches try to do is, slowing the game down works as a form of defense. If you're not good enough to guard man to man, you have to be in zone all the time, et cetera, and you can't score with the other team, then you slow the game down and try to limit the possessions, et cetera, et cetera. That's what they did to Queens in that game. Queens shot it really well. I mean, almost 1.2 points per possession is a good number. But if they repeat that here, you've got to get something out of Jacksonville to get this total over. And I think it's why the money has pushed this one down. There's a lot of instances where I will play overs with really, really good offensive teams against really, really good defensive teams. But when the other side of the floor says the other offense stinks, it's hard. Queens is just not going to give them up like water to Jacksonville. They didn't the first time. Jacksonville 4 of 19 from 3. As I look at the earlier box way back on January 8, a month ago. I don't know. It's a tough one for me, Paul. I see where you're going with it because it's relatively low for a Queens game when you can get something in the mid 140s or up to upper end of the 140s. I think this one's 146. You want to react to that, but I just don't know what we're going to get out of Jacksonville here. It's almost like if you don't get, I'll say this, if you don't get 85 out of Queens this time, then you probably have no chance because Jacksonville on the road isn't going to come with a lot of support. So it's got to be a Queens blowout somewhere to the tune of 90-61. If you see that in your, crystal ball, then that's the way to go. I definitely get what he's saying, Adam. I just don't know that I could bring myself to do it.
Yeah, and I misspoke a little bit about Queens. It seemed like they were running away with this league at one point,
Yeah,
and then they've lost 3 straight. So from a standpoint of like getting right here, Rob Vino, it certainly feels like this could be the spot where Queens, really lays into someone. Of course, they lose on the road as a favorite last time to Bellarmine. They lose a home game to Central Arkansas. I had to double check that score, 100-90 against Central Arkansas. They've lost a few games in a row now as a favorite. I believe 3 in a row. The first meeting they crushed Jacksonville on the road, 77-51. So yeah, I'm again, this was not one that I put a ton of thought into yet. Just because I don't feel like I have as good of a beat on these two teams. I don't think I've bet. Actually, that's actually not true. I've successfully faded Jacksonville at points this year. So that's what I would do here. I think if I was going to play this one, it would have to just be Queens, lay it, and hope that this looks like the first meeting. Because if it looks anything like the first meeting, Rob, you're going to cash easily with Queens. That was a blowout. All right, we are off and running today. Sean, our guy Sean Higgs is in the chat. Someone's like, this card sucks. He's like, sucks. He's like, I got 10 games. I already moved and 5 others I'm about to fire on. Yeah, that's my biggest problem on a Thursday card like this. When all the mid-majors are playing, and these are all the teams that I feel like I have better insight on than the market. I am in that boat a lot of times where I'm sitting there with like 15 games and I'm like, what do I do? Right? Do I fire all 15? Probably not. So yeah, paring down on Thursday for me is tough too, Sean. I agree with that. I'll give out at least I'll give out one client play on the show. I've been I said this yesterday, and this is I'll use this time to promo our package. Rob and I have the double the firepower CBB package. It's all of my plays. It's all of Rob's plays. I don't mind giving one out on the show because like pretty much we're at the point where almost every day, with the exception of maybe a Monday or a Friday, I'm going to have like four plays, maybe 5 that are all client plays. So we'll make sure you get one on the show, but bang for your buck wise, Rob Vino. That's I think that's as good as it's ever been for my plays during a basketball season. I don't know that we've ever had a package as good as that one from a value standpoint. So that's my promo. Check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed with the amount of info and different angles you're getting on that package. All right, Rob, we've got to do this one. I almost was going to make this the feature game because I think that this is possibly the game of the night. And then I said, we got to do something a little bit bigger. Got to go to national TV. No, I'm not talking Siena, Iona, though that is a big deal to folks in the capital region. But I am talking about William and Mary, UNC Wilmington. Rob, I also, and Clem in the chat says, can we get thoughts on Wilmington and William and Mary? And we've actually had a lot of thoughts on these two teams this year. So what I wanted to point out, Rob, I'm watching games the last, over the weekend, and I jotted down, make sure to bring this up when next time these guys play. You and I have talked about William and Mary. It feels like every time they play a game, they come up on our show. You've had success with William and Mary from a totals perspective. Something I said was, we got to revisit this team in February because Brian Earl's teams in the past, the teams he had up here in Central New York at Cornell, when they weren't his super experienced teams that were very, very used to playing his system, they would run out of gas a little bit in February. He plays such a grueling system, so much press, so much up and down on offense that there are Cornell guys that were on record saying, like, we just straight up ran out of gas. We were not ready we were not conditioned properly to play the way he wanted to play. Now he's at William & Mary, so you would think year 2, that might not be as big of an issue, but his roster is a lot different than it was last year, just going off of memory. I think he inherited some upperclassmen last year that are no longer there. So I had mentioned to you, Rob, I said, we got to talk about this comeback early February. And over the weekend, William & Mary looked as gassed as I've seen them all season. I mean, Campbell, layup lines for Campbell over the weekend, right to the rim, no resistance whatsoever. Campbell dropped 104 in a 104-96 final down in, I believe, Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's even worse, Rob. That was a home game for the Tribe. Steve Merrill leaving in disgust at the effort for that game, 104-96. Now it's a road game for the Tribe. They're headed to Trask Coliseum down in Wilmington. They say this is the best mid-major environment in college basketball. I already saw the white T-shirts on the chairs. It's a whiteout in Wilmington tonight, Rob. You're the William and Mary guy this year for this show. What are you doing with this one?
Well, I'll say this. I did watch that Campbell, William and Mary game the other day, and DJ Smith for Campbell could do no wrong. I mean, the first 12 minutes of that game, I think he had like 23 points already. Everything he shot went in. Like you mentioned, the defensive resistance was 0 to the rim, three-pointer. William and Mary, give them credit. They made an incredible run at Campbell in the second half. If you were in-game betting in that one and played William and Mary when they got behind 30-8, you made a little bit of cash because they came back pretty strong. Campbell did outlast them 104-96. I only bring that up because that's kind of the way the first game went with these two teams. This is a revenge setting for Wilmington, and they get to try and exact that revenge at home on their home floor, like you say, in a very good atmosphere. But William and Mary was out to the 30-8 lead to start that game. First 10 minutes, boom, 38 William and Mary. Last 30 minutes of that one, 62-47 NC Wilmington. Do you believe the first 10 minutes or do you believe the last 30 in that game where Wilmington was 15 points better? I'm inclined to believe the back half of the game is what I believe. I think Wilmington is superior all around. I think that maybe they got hit with that initial punch, thinking back to that game where William and Mary, like you say, they're always coming at you with that press. Wilmington didn't handle things really well first 10 minutes. But once they got settled in, it was a different story. At home here in a revenge spot, got to believe that they're the right side in this game, honestly. Now, William and Mary can score with the best of them, I know, but Wilmington's been a really good defense for the most part this season. So after seeing it once, Adam, and seeing it on the road, I just believe William and Mary makes all the proper adjustments, which it looks like they made over the course of the last 30 minutes of the first game already. So they know what to do. And that was a 15-point difference. And I get a little bit of that can kind of be swept away because it's chase mode. And sometimes when you're in chase mode, you do close a gap just because you're trading threes for twos, et cetera. It wasn't really the case in that game. They were just better the last 30 minutes. So I would look towards NC Wilmington here. Again, they've been the best team all season long. The one thing about them is, and I think you mentioned this last time we talked about Wilmington, they haven't really won by huge margin inside the league. And that's what you run into here when you're a favorite. Can you create some separation? But I just think that the enormity, I shouldn't say enormity, it's not like it's a Super Bowl, but the substantial, significance of this game probably brings North Carolina Wilmington's best effort, and they cover the number.
I want to bring up a comment because I think this is a good point here. He said, so Ocho says, Adam, you said that about New Mexico yesterday. Yeah, I did. I mentioned that New Mexico has a great home atmosphere, and it's always, for me, worth a couple points. I want to make something very, very clear. I've never once made a bet with the rationale this has a really good home atmosphere. It's just always just going to be one component. Never once have I said, oh, they have a great home atmosphere. That's a bet. Yesterday, yeah, I pointed out that New Mexico, has been someone I'd be looking to play on at home. This is very interesting that he brings that game up, though, because it's almost the same. It's almost the same thing as New Mexico was in, where they were undefeated at home, but they haven't been good at home against the spread. Wilmington's the same way. They haven't lost a home game yet this year. Or maybe they lost. I'm sorry, they did lose a home game. It was a bad loss too. I remember it. It was Howard they lost to at home, I believe, and maybe another. But the point is, Wilmington over the last couple of years, if you were to put their just straight up home record out there over the last couple of years, it's going to look very, very impressive. They rarely lose at home, but this year they're not very good against the spread at home. So, my buddy Aaron Kidd, who's very sharp, I always trust what he says. He kind of texted me last night. He goes, man, Wilmington should really win this game. Good revenge spot. Would love to find a way to play their money line. Yeah, like I kind of think the same. I'm with you in that regard, Rob, where I think it is a nice sort of bounce back spot, or really more of a revenge spot for Wilmington. I think I like the over better here because I think there's going to be big time paths to both teams scoring. So I'll go to Bayou here. He says, how does this game not hit 160? Yeah, how does it not hit 160? If Wilmington's even a little bit tired defensively, William & Mary, which they certainly looked over the weekend, Wilmington's going to be able to score. That being said, you talked about the first meeting. What does Wilmington do so drastically that William & Mary isn't scoring in this game? I think was kind of the, one of the points you were making. So I'll take a rare. This is a rare. I always like when this happens, Rob, because of course you always are mostly totals. I'm pretty much exclusively sides. You come here and you like Wilmington, and I'm like, I kind of love the over. So little reverse for us, but I think there's points in this one. I'm with you, Bayou. How does it not hit 160? And Shane says Wilmington money line. Yeah, maybe we can maybe we can find something to pair that Wilmington money line with, because I would kind of be inclined to think they win this game. I don't know. I thought they'd be the best team in this league this year, Rob, and maybe it's because CJ Luster never stepped on the court that I didn't appropriately downgrade them, but like, I don't know. I still think they're probably, watching enough Towson and some of these other quote unquote top CAA teams. I still think Wilmington is the class of this league. All right. I've got two plays locked in right now. I'm kind of scrolling through the chat. I am gonna ask you, do you want to do a 2-teamer or a 3-teamer today, Rob? Should we switch it up and go 3-teamer? Because if we did, we could use Wilmington money line as one of the three. If we, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You just pulled the words right out of my mouth. I said, if we're going to go 3, let's put Wilmington money line in it. So yeah, I'm all for that. If we want to go 3, let's use that as the third man piece, so to speak. And then when we get to ours, we'll just add those two that I think Wilmington's the right side in that game. So
what are you seeing for a market money line price? And we will find another money line leg for you to 2-team with as well. But we're going to put Wilmington money line as the third leg, or we'll call it the first leg of our 3-teamer today. What do you see for a price?
I think what's fair, because as we know, the size of the vig between books is incredible. Some treat you fairly, some don't. But I think the fair price here is -220. You see as low as 210, and believe it or not, Adam, you see as high as 245. Don't shop there. But 220 seems to be like the common thread in between most of these places.
Yeah, and again, like I'm still gonna go off of my hunch that William & Mary playing the Brian Earl style might be a little bit sluggish coming into the month of February. They're going to need to hit that stretch in their schedule. I haven't looked at it, but where they get like the full week off, or they just get to run someone out to the point where they can like rest everyone. I'm kind of willing, after watching that Campbell game, I'd be really surprised if they roll into Trask Coliseum and win in this spot. So yeah, I like that quite a bit. All right, let's go back. I'm going to scan the chat real quick and either grab a game or decide if I want to give my parlay leg out. I'll do it within the next 10 seconds. I think I'm going to, I think I'm going to give out my parlay leg. That's what I've decided to do right here. So let me just head to the, I've got 2 plays locked in. And so the first thing I want to just really quickly do is check the odds screen, because just for clients, I'm always going to give the one that's moved a little bit more on the show. Well, that's actually for myself too, since we do sell plays here. So that's another quick promo for WagerTalk.com, where you can get all of our plays. We already promoted our package. I'll go ahead and give this one out. We talked some Atlantic Sun basketball already on the show, and I'm going to go back to the A-Sun. Garth said he had another super chat. Garth, put that in again, because for some reason it didn't get starred. If someone's messing with my starred super chat flag that I put on here, I might have to have a chat with the golf guys or whoever uses this show. I said star the super chat and it didn't come up starred. So Garth, put that back in. We may have to May have to have a chat about that off camera here, Rob. But I'm going to give my play out. Then we'll go to Garth, whatever he's looking at. I played Eastern Kentucky on the money line, -115. We brought the conference up, and I said, oh, Queens, they were kind of running away with the league, which was true up until about 2 weeks ago. Now it is Austin P that looks like they're kind of running away with the league. But I'm going to listen, we hit. I got you, Garth. We'll go to that one next. I started myself. We hit a play on Monday with Boston University. I gave it out as my leg of the parlay. And I said, Rob, this is a team that I thought was going to win this league, this being the Patriot League. I'm going to tie this in just a second. I said, this is a team that I thought was going to win this league. I can't believe they're sitting down there in essentially in last place. And it just felt like the right time to sort of buy in with that team, thinking like it can't be this bad. It can't. Andy, I'm just kidding. He's like, hey, we got watch those accusations right there on the toward the golf guys. I'm just kidding. But anyway, we talked about Boston University on Monday being in this spot where it might be time to buy low on the Terriers. We do that. They go out, get the win relatively easily against Holy Cross. I feel like Eastern Kentucky is in almost the same spot here. If I go back now, admittedly, I don't bet a ton of Atlantic Sun. I kind of just dabble here and there when I get a good angle or have a team that I like. I don't really bet this league a ton, but I do remember very vividly, believe we took them on the show against Western Kentucky earlier this year. We were involved in that game. And I remember talking multiple times in November, December, that I thought Eastern Kentucky was easily the best team in this league, was easily going to win this league, would definitely be at the top. And Rob, boy, has that not been the case at all. They are 7-16. Eastern Kentucky comes in having lost 4 straight. They're now 3-7. The only team that they're ahead of in conference play is Northern Alabama, who's 2-8 and essentially lost everyone from last year. So that to me is very, very surprising. I kind of look and I say, well, they don't have the excuses that BU does, really, who's totally decimated by injury. That I think BU's got a little bit of excuse. I don't think Eastern Kentucky has that excuse. I think their problem is they don't play a ton of defense and they lose a lot of close games. But here, this just seems manageable for them. Historically, they've done well against Florida Gulf Coast. I believe recently they've won all maybe 4 meetings the last 2 years. They're at home in a price range where I feel like I should be laying like 5.5 points. I only have to play them at pick. You and I hit back-to-back winners fading Florida Gulf Coast about 2 weeks ago. I had Austin P, and then you came back the next day in a day that got a game that got altered by weather, and you played Lipscomb, and both of them were blowout wins. I know Kashesny, or whatever his name is, for Florida Gulf Coast is back, which certainly helps them. I mean, they're DOA without him. We found that out. But I don't think he's played what? I think he came back over the weekend, played 25 minutes, 9 points. Like, he's certainly going to give Florida Gulf Coast a chance in this game. But they still have to go on the road and beat a desperate team that's lost 4 straight and has to want this one. So, Rob, I played Eastern Kentucky on the money line. I laid -118. I think it's still -115, -120 most places. So I'm going to call it -120 for the parlay. I like Eastern Kentucky in this one. What do you think?
I like it. It's the FGCU side hasn't been, and it is true that the big guy was out for a while, and I'm thinking back to that game now that you mentioned it. The Lipscomb, it was a day game, I think, right? There was bad weather and they had to play back.
Day game moved up a full day for weather.
Yeah. It was a miserable situation, and plus I had watched them the night before at Gulf Coast, and their offensive rhythm was just way off, and it was way off the next day as well. Second game under his belt, maybe not. I'm not sure, but I think the Eastern Kentucky side is the right side here. The team that I would equate to when I go through these schedules and just look at is Austin P, because they've been so good, and against Austin P, Florida Gulf Coast was lousy. So I'm with you there. I don't have much on that total. I'm trying to just do some quick numbers in my head where total is concerned to see if I can help the chat any where that's concerned. But I don't know. That number seems to be in a really good spot. So I would stick by what you're going with here. EKU, bet now up to -1. Pretty solid choice. And we're at 1047. So why don't I go ahead? Again, like you were saying, Adam, 5-6 plays, maybe probably
Yeah.
paring down. I know Higgs was in saying he's got 15. I could say the same. I mean, there's about 10 or 11 things that I like here, but for purposes of the show, I'm going to go to the Big West. We've talked a lot of Big West basketball this year. Big West has personally made me a lot of money, whether it be Northridge or Cal Poly or these offensive-minded teams that just continue to go over numbers. And those are the ones that we've talked about the most. But I'm getting to the point now where I think Santa Barbara might be the best team in this league since Merrill Little came back.
Yeah.
6 games back. They've won all 6. This is a somewhat of a semi-revenge spot, I'll call it, because they lost in his first game back to UC Davis by 7. Now they have to go try and exact revenge on the road. I usually prefer it when it's at home, but I think they could even get it on the road. I think the bigger picture here for me is this team total of Santa Barbara, which now is a really good offensive team with Little in the mix. Looking at 74.5, maybe 75.5 in this game. They got to 86 first time around in regulation against UC Davis, but they gave up 93. That was the problem. 86 now on the road. Do I think that they're 10 points worse, 11 points worse in this game? No. They're a better team now. And I think that getting to 75 here is not going to be an issue against UC Davis, which has been a middle-of-the-road defense all season long. They're definitely not a team that's adverse to giving up high 70s. So for me, Adam, I'm just going to play the team, and I'm not going to argue anybody off of side here. This thing has been bet up from 2 to 3.5, and I believe in the line movement here. I think that's the right way. But I'm so much more comfortable in these situations just counting on one side to do their part of the equation as far as scoring points is concerned, that's the way I'll go here. I leave it open to the chat. You guys make your own bets all the time. So, take what I'm saying and choose what you like. But I do think the better one for me, the better angle for me is UC Santa Barbara to score over 74.5. Just seems like a low number. Like I can picture them final score here being in that 77, 78 range. So that's going to be my bet for the parlay, my leg of the parlay. UC Santa Barbara team total over 74.5.
Yeah, I had so this one was definitely on this is on my Sean Higgs list, which is the longer list with like 15 games on it that I'm trying to pare down right now. I'm kicking myself because I was really close to playing Santa Barbara -2. I guess what the only thing that, just to finish the breakdown of the game, what talked me off of the side a little bit is I've also been very pro UC Davis this year, and I believe Jim Les has a pretty good track record against the Santa Barbara team. That being said, Rob, I thought about you when I was looking at this game, where it's like, you weren't wrong. You were just early. Okay. I remember you talking about Santa Barbara, almost the first show we did, and just how good this team was going to be this year. They had their struggles in non-conference play. You could argue they struggled a little bit playing up in non-conference play against better competition. Then, of course, the Merrill Little injury was definitely significant for them. They didn't play as good without him. Since Big West play has started and like recently, they have been, they looked like everything you said they were going to be coming into this season. And it's hard to believe that if they win this game, which I think they do, that they're not doing it by more than 3. And this seems to have settled in at 3. So while I would have loved the 2 or the money line I could have gotten when that was at 2, although I do think that's another reason I didn't fire, is that the money line was already pretty juiced. Even when it opened 2, they already had a pretty significantly juiced money line. So I think that might have been a juiced 2 that it opened at. But I could not talk anyone off the Santa Barbara side either. And I think you were totally right about them being the class of this league, which is notable, Rob, because a lot of there was people saying Hawaii, there's people saying UC Irvine, UC San Diego, all were getting love in that regard. And I remember you saying, no, Santa Barbara is by far the most talented. They're going to be the best team in this league. And I've come around to that. I'm agreeing with you. So I hope you're right about them scoring points tonight, because we need to hit one of these parlays. And I think a 3-teamer, I'm going to calculate the odds, would get us back in the plus. So yeah, I'm with you on the Santa Barbara call right there, Rob. I want to go
thinking back at him real
yeah,
quick, let's credit, I forget the name of your Big West buddy
oh,
who
that's
came on
Jordan.
with us.
Yeah,
He
that's
was on
Jordan.
Santa Barbara as well the day
Yep.
we had him on. He was talking them up pretty well. So we want to credit Jordan a little bit too.
Yeah, Jordan is he's on Twitter all the time. He's Jordan Alexander on Twitter, and he is well versed in Big West basketball. He lives out there, follows those teams. He was all over UC San Diego last year. I know he really liked Hawaii coming into this year, and that's really sort of come true as well. They've been right in the mix as well in this league. So yeah, shout out Jordan. He's very knowledgeable of all things college hoops, but Big West is definitely in his wheelhouse. I'm going to go to Garth's game, but first I want to say, Kevin says, how do you donate to the show? I believe through YouTube. So I believe if you watch the show on the YouTube channel, you have the ability to subscribe, which is, I think, like it puts you in this quote unquote super chat. I think, again, I wish I knew how any of this worked, but I do think it gives you an opportunity to attach a donation to the show that I believe we donate to charity per Johnny. So it goes to a good place. I don't remember what one it went to, but like I think every month they take the YouTube donations and make a donation on the company's behalf to a charity. So that's where those donations go. But it also it helps the show massive. So we very much appreciate it, and it makes sure that I see your comment. And since we only get to 6-7 games on the show, I'm obviously going to pick the comments that have the donation attached first, and then we'll hit the other comments in the chat. Garth, I'll go back to him because he's not the only one that was asking about this game. Let's get some SoCon into the mix for Thursday. He says Mercer Chattanooga. He likes Mercer -4.5. Rob, coming into the year, I thought Mercer was the dark horse in this league, but I think the secret has been out for a while now that this team is pretty good. Chattanooga was the team that I think a lot of people thought would be in position to win this league this year, but they kind of had some injuries right off the bat, and they certainly haven't been that. So Mercer Chattanooga, you got Mercer a 4.5-point road favorite. While I'm sort of making my calculations to figure out exactly what I have the number at here, talk to me about this one, side or total.
Yeah, Mercer has been a covering machine inside this league, and man, they've scored points. And you guys have watched the show long enough now since early November to know that I like offensive-minded teams that are really, really consistent, because in the totals avenue, the totals lane that I'm in, I'm basically scratching off each and every morning games that I think are going to go under and just looking for those where I find an edge to the over. But Mercer certainly has been an absolute offensive machine. The team total is 8-2 to the over as well during this 8-2 game ATS covering streak. I can't disagree, Garth. I mean, personally, and here's another thing where I kick myself for not being, or for maybe for paring down on client lists, folks who subscribe, paring down, and Mercer totals always seem to just hit that final chopping block where I don't add it to the client card. And I kick myself because they've just been going over and over. I could see it happening again tonight. This is the first meeting with Chattanooga, though, which is somewhat, for me, it's almost like a counterpunch type thing. They're going to play Chattanooga really quick within the next 2 weeks. And maybe the second time around, you react to what you saw the first time around. But if you're asking for a first-time reaction here on this game, I can't bet against Mercer the way they've been covering numbers. And I do think that as good as Chattanooga may be defensively, that Mercer's going to get theirs. It's kind of, I'll correlate it to what I was saying in the NFL games where the Rams Seahawks game. Let me just use that one as a not different sport, direct correlation type comparison here. The Seattle defense gets a huge amount of attention. And a lot of people going into that championship game thought, the Seattle defense, Rams are going to have trouble. But the Rams with Stafford get theirs against anybody. Doesn't matter who you are defensively. And I feel that way about Mercer right now. Like Mercer's going to get theirs against anybody. So I may get, you somewhat opened the box to my client list for today, but I may get to this Mercer team total over today. Hopefully I'm not too late to jump on the wagon, but I think it's a good spot with a number that's somewhat suppressed because of the defense that they're playing. Not going to argue up a Mercer. I would add to it team total Mercer over.
Yeah, I mean, right. I'm pretty much right on the number. At 4.5. 4.5 is basically what I make this game, but there are some things that could push me into the Mercer side. The first thing, I'd love to know why Jordan Freeson only played 17 minutes last game. He is the leading scorer for this Chattanooga team, and that's something I'll have to look at throughout the day, because 17 points doesn't look like he was in foul trouble. That was a close game. If they were to be missing him, that would be very, very concerning. So that's something I'll have to look at. The other thing I'll point out is this is a team, Colin Mulholland was supposed to be the sort of like the focal point at one point coming into the season, big 6'11" center. He kind of got himself hurt. Like, he's been back, but he's really been a non-factor. He's been back for almost a month now. So sometimes this happens, Rob, where you have a team that gets their quote unquote star back, but they're still kind of playing through injury, and they never really like reach star status, but they got the bump for them coming back. I think maybe you've seen that a little bit with Chattanooga, because he's okay, like 7.3 points per game, 2.8 boards, but he's really only out there 14, 15 minutes a game, and he's not having like the impact on the scoring that I think they would have expected him to have this year. So again, Chattanooga, just not the team that I think many thought they would be coming into the season. I had shied away from betting Chattanooga games for a while because I felt like my number was too pro Chattanooga. It was pushing me toward the Chattanooga side pretty much every game. But here, I think I think that number's about right. But if Freeson was out for some reason, I would be kind of inclined to just fire on Mercer. And I think you'd actually probably move. I think you would see this go more like 6.5 or 6 if he was out. So that's something that I will look at in regards to that game.
Yeah, real quick, Adam, without direct confirmation, I have here that Jordan Freeson expect to play for UTC tonight against Mercer.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
I would be real. Well, that's the thing. I think you'd already have seen some market movement if there was any inkling that he would be out. I just, on a quick glance, found it odd he only played 17 minutes, and that's again, it's just something I'll look at as the day goes on. It's what I'll be looking at. That's what I'll be doing the rest of the day, Rob. I've got 2 plays locked in. I would be shocked if I don't end up with 3 more. One of them is Eastern Kentucky money line, and that is in the parlay. Rob Vino's leg of the parlay is going to be UC Santa Barbara over 74.5. And I'm looking down because I'm trying to calculate this with the correct juice as we're up against it here, but I've got it. So plus 410. So the parlay plus 410 as my light dies right at the gun here. Now I'm over here in the dark. Really got to do a better job of charging these. Over here by the campfire now, Rob, with the flashlight up in front of my face, we've got Wilmington money line minus 220. Eastern Kentucky money line 4% play for me. That's minus 120. And then Rob Vino's going with UC Santa Barbara over 74.5 plus 410 on the odds. We'll see you guys in the morning. Good luck today, everyone. We'll see you for more Full Court Press Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern.